Yeah, hey, Pesa. Good evening, Florida You Judge with Florida You Judge, and I am here with Connie Burton, community activist Connie Burton. Today is June the 9th of 2022. Am I correct on the day and the year? My mind by this time is pretty cluttered. So it's 6:35. We started 5 minutes late. I apologize, but I'm gonna just give a couple of announcements because I told some of the my fellow community members that I would for Makila McCaskill. She is having a American Dream Fest on June 18th at 9 a.m. And it appears there on the flyer is Bob Enriquez, the Hillsborough County property appraiser. We have somebody who's on the promo. Charlotte Luke, I believe, is the name that's going to come and appear as a representative of the Hillsborough County Tax Collector's Office. And then we also have Tammy Schamberger, who's an Allstate insurance agent, and they're going to be at this American Dream Fest on June um, 18th. So if you can attend, that would be great, especially if you'll benefit from the information that they're going to give you. That I think is going to be very informative. She's also having Keela McCaskill a probate summit. That's June 14th, 2022 this year, 6 p.m. That's on there. But in any event, go ahead and maybe Keela McCaskill will be tuning in this evening. But let me see if this. Do any of you happen to have Keela's info?
Her,
So that they can contact her directly. Um,
I do.
okay. Do you want to go ahead and put that in the chat area so that I can publish it and so that
Sure.
okay, so those are the two things. Another thing, another event that's going to be happening this at on Saturday is let me see if I have it here. I think I don't. I gotta let me see. I gotta upload that. Give me just a moment because this is a very important event that's gonna take place this Saturday, and that is we'll be starting right away after I. Okay, so this is gonna be held on Saturday at Tea and Conversation, Candy Lowe's Tea and Conversation at Al's Finger Licking Good Soul Food. That's 2302 East 7th Avenue, Ybor City. And it's going to be a great topic, the impact of school discipline for Black children, presented by April Cobb, Denise Thomas, and Angela Schroden. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's from 2 a.m., starts at 2 a.m., and it goes on till 12 p.m. I've been to Candy's Tea and Conversation, Al Fingers Licking Good Soul Food, very good food. I had their fried pork chops, very delicious. Did you know Black students are suspended or expelled at a rate almost 3.5 times greater than white students? So that's being held this Saturday, June 11th, at starting at 10 a.m. at Al's Finger Licking Good Soul Food. Let's go ahead and start. There's a private chat here. Anyways, I hope Keela calls, but call me if you need. I'm gonna go ahead and publish my phone. Ooh, no, that's not the private. That's the private. Go ahead if you've are interested in any of those events and you need information on how to get there, what dates, who to call for more information. I'm happy to give that to you. 727-214-4930. My name is Heidi Oropes. I'm happy to take your call to give you that information. Okay, so Connie Burton, always a pleasure. She's a regular guest here to comment. And so we spoke this week because her and I both, maybe on Tuesday, today's Thursday. So Tuesday, someone told me, "Hey, are you watching the Looped um, press conference that Chief Mary O'Connor's having on discussing the recent gun violence that passed with this past weekend?" And so I didn't have time during the day, but once I got settled in the evening, Tuesday evening, I went ahead and I went to try to locate her press conference. And so she talked about she had a bunch of a combination of elected officials, community activists, city councilmen. I saw Luis Vieira there, Joseph Citro, Orlando Goods. There were faith-based community members there present as well. And so it was a good crowd behind Mary O'Connor. And she at one point said that they were all united as a group to have their voices in unison to talk against gun violence. I think that's a good thing. We don't want gun violence in our communities. We want safety, each and every one of us in our community. So I think that that's a good thing to stand in solidarity to fight against gun violence. But there was one thing that kind of had me raise an eyebrow, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show a couple of clips so that we speak based on fact and not opinion. And I like to always be thorough and factual, so that we dispense with truth. And if we're going to give a perspective, it would be based on actual facts. So let me go ahead and play. Let me play kind of the longer. It's not incredibly long, 52 seconds, I believe, maybe not even a minute. But I'm going to show this first clip.
So, as you're all aware, we had two gun-related homicides less than 2 hours apart yesterday in broad daylight. These were not random incidents, and I'm here to say today that this cannot continue. We stand here today as a snapshot of our community. Joining me today are representatives of our elected officials, federal and state agencies, our first responders, school officials, faith-based leaders, community activists, and family members who have lost loved ones to gun violence. Our voices are joined today to amplify the message that it takes all of us to make this community safer. I made it clear that crime reduction and community engagement were two of my primary 4 focus areas, and this group today represents this goal that we all share. Let me recap and update you on yesterday's tragedies. After a group altercation, 2 males were shot in the parking lot at the gas station at Republica de Cuba and Columbus Drive. Officers and paramedics provided first aid until the subjects were transported to the hospital. We quickly identified and located all the parties involved and recovered what is believed to be the guns involved in yesterday's incident. Everyone at that altercation knew each other. It appears that this was an escalation from an argument between 2 parties that started just a few weeks ago. But violence did not solve this problem. In this case, we have a 24-year-old male and a 15-year-old male, both armed with guns. The result is a 21-year-old male dead, the 15-year-old in stable condition, and he's currently in the hospital with a gunshot wound. Detectives have conducted interviews and are now consulting with the state attorney's office to determine what charges are applicable in this case. Less than 2 hours later, in the 4300 block of North 35th Street, officers were again dispatched to the report of a shooting.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there because I just want to go to like the crux of the issue primarily this evening of what we're going to talk about. Later on, we're going to have Patty Silliman, who's the mother of Jason Westcott, who was killed at thereabouts 2014 by TPD because of a confidential informant information, who then later he came out and said that it wasn't true what he'd relayed. And so with the problems with snitches, confidential informants. So let me go ahead before I'm going to allow Connie Burton to first react. Here's the thing of the elected officials that they referenced that were there. The public defender, as you can see her, Julian Holt, is standing not too far from Mary O'Connor. And so you're going to see Mary O'Connor now in this clip inviting Patty. Give me a second. I'll call you as soon as I'm ready for you so that you can come in and react on the portion that I'd like you to discuss as far as the death of your son and how that happened. Okay?
Okay.
So we have this clip. We have Chief Mary O'Connor asking the public to give crime tips or tips about persons possessing illegal firearms.
Felons should not have guns in the first place. What can you do to help us make our community safer? First of all, if you know someone who illegally is possessing a firearm, let us know. Let us know.
Okay, let us know. And she's doing this motion as suggesting everybody here behind me, which includes the public defender of Hillsborough County, let us know about crime tips. If you see somebody doing something illegal with a firearm, let anybody here call in that tip. Let's watch that again.
Felons should not have guns in the first place. What can you do to help us make our community safer? First of all, if you know someone who illegally is possessing a firearm, let us know. Let us know. Let Crime Stoppers know. Use the app. Use tip 411 to text a tip. Let somebody know. But always remember that you can remain anonymous. Felons should not have guns.
You can remain anonymous. So we'll talk to Patty Silliman shortly on that anonymity and the use of confidential informants. But for now, let's focus on this first issue. The public defender's there. I don't know the protocol on press conferences. I don't know if she could have had maybe interrupted and said something if she wasn't okay with being included in a group of people that could be contacted to receive crime tips as the public defender, whose role it is to defend indigent persons against accusations. So this is live. We're taking live calls. For those of you who have tuned in, thank you so much. This is very important. The Office of the Public Defender is mandated by constitutionally. Our country has as one of its foundations that persons that are accused of crimes have a right to an attorney if they're indigent. Gideon versus Wainwright asked Ms. Holt about that case. She's very familiar with it. And conflict-free counsel we are entitled to if accused by the state of a crime. Representative Hart, she came right after Chief Mary O'Connor kind of doubled down, call-in tips. The elected officials were all happy to receive tips from
shake down your children's rooms. Shake them down. You all know when kids bring things into the house they shouldn't be. We cannot put blinders on. I cannot stand around and say, oh, well, it does happen. No, it does not happen. Not in our community. I was born and raised in this community. This is not what I'm accustomed to. And now it's my district to represent. We must do better, community. We need you. We need you. See something, say something. You see the people standing behind you. Each and every one of us are happy for you to tell us. If you see somebody with a gun or parent, you pick it up, call one of us, any one of us, elected officials or community people. We will turn them in for you.
Okay, so Julian Holt, the public defenders are within the group of people that the Representative Diane Hart is saying can be called to receive a tip of someone committing a crime, and that her office will turn those people in. So Julian Holt was there. I could understand if maybe she didn't want to intercept and say, yo, no. I don't know what her thoughts are on that, but I did, because I like to be fair. Before commenting on this, I did email her, and I did request for a reaction. I emailed her yesterday, and today I followed up today earlier. Ms. Holt, please confirm or dispel whether your office will be receiving and relaying crime tips to Tampa Police Department. We are going live tonight at 6:30 p.m. on this issue. It's very important. I worked for Julie in 2000. I went to the jail as a young public defender. And you know what? At times I had clients who I was assigned to represent tell me up in my face, you're working with the state. You're in cahoots with the police and the state. You are a public pretender. I've had to endure having clients tell me that during my almost 7-year tenure of public service. And at times, you know what? I still advocated zealously for them. Inside, I felt, gosh, this is a little sad that they don't believe that I'm actually fighting for them wholeheartedly and 110%. So this kind of thing, if someone sees this, that, am I right about this? And I'm gonna stop talking now. Gretchen, Connie, Getulio, does the public, segments of them, especially those who are accused, whether they retain private representation or end up having to be represented by the public defender, does that thought process, is that present in some people's minds, that everybody, they're all in cahoots? Connie.
Well, in our community, I think you're absolutely right. People feel that the state, whether it is the police, the judge, the bailiffs, the public defender, all of them represent a team. And when you have, along with that team, a percentage rate that is so high with conviction, many people will tell you that walking in with a public defender, you're already guilty and you're going to come out with some type of sentence. In the Black community, we do not feel that there has been a vigorous attempt toward justice, toward those that are poor. And so there is this uneasiness of not believing that being represented by a public defender, you're going to come out with the best outcome.
Getulio, you're on your way to law school. Kudos to you. You're a fighter. You're a person whose heart is in the community and fighting for what's right and just and for what's just. You have your finger on the pulse of the community activists there. What do you say when you know it's a reality? Some people who are accused, who've been through the system, or even just have an opinion about this, say, I get calls all the time. When I was a public defender, some clients would say, should I hire a private attorney? Will it help me? And I had a colleague as an assistant public defender who used to say comically, I don't know if it's going to help you, but it's definitely going to help me because of the high caseload. So when I never disparage any assistant public defender, because I was one for almost 7 years, and there are some that are phenomenal attorneys, and I would venture to say even probably maybe better than even some private attorneys. But nonetheless, that thought process is out there. They're going to sell me out the public defender. They're in cahoots. Yes, no, commentary.
So from my perspective, this is completely unethical. Just from the standpoint that, like, optically, it's a bad look, and if as an outsider, I see that it besmirches potentially the reputation of the institution of the public defender's office. Now, we all know it. Racial profiling is a thing. It's a fact of life, and people of color disproportionately they find themselves in the criminal justice system. So especially when you're coming from an indigent community, like, what are you supposed to think? And I think like this: like, what if I didn't take after my father? All right, we had this conversation earlier, Haiti. What if I took after my mother, and my skin color was the same as my uncle? Right? I would, if I saw the elected public defender sitting there next to the chief of police and sitting or standing there next to the state attorney, I'd be terrified. Because I know what the criminal justice system is like. Like you said, the caseloads for public defenders or assistant public defenders are extremely high. So that leads to situations where, like, okay, let's just get this out of the way as soon as possible. Just cop this plea. It's whether you did the crime or not, cop to this. And like like I said, if I were my uncle's skin color and I saw that, I'd be terrified. It just confirms everything that we were told as children. Like, don't trust the criminal justice system. Don't trust the state's attorney's office. Don't trust the police department. And especially don't trust the public defender's office, because, like Miss Connie said, they're all part of a team.
Okay, well, so you did say something when you began your commentary that it's unethical. I don't think at this juncture I would go so far as saying that it's unethical. I have a problem with communication.
With the tips, Haiti.
Okay, we'll talk about that now. But at this juncture right now, let's just be, I want to be fair. I don't want to impugn anybody's integrity or say anything that's unethical without gathering facts. I sent an email to the public defender on this issue, and she's not responded. That, to me, for accountability purposes, I mean, we just recently, by the way, had Jane Castor not too long ago say tensions on display as Mayor Jane Castor announces new transparency measures, which include Tampa Bay Times also reported on it. Castor announces steps to curb scandals of Tampa council members, and in that article, they said at her news conference, Castor announced a series of transparency and accountability measures, some of them plainly directed at city council members. They include what she described as improved lobbyist registration and disclosure requirements, conflict of interest reporting by elected city officials. So I'm gonna let Gretchen now talk, but for transparency, my word, this is concerning. And we're going to talk about the potential conflicts that could arise. If the public defender was there, we heard what we heard. The Chief O'Connor and Representative Hart said that any of them would be happy to get a tip and turn the person in. That would be certainly open up a world of problems for the public defender as far as conflict of interest go. But for her not to be responsive to the community, she's going to go to a forum. I see that you're a panelist on soon, Connie. Maybe she should be asked there, because it appears to me, based on my interaction with Julian Holt, she picks and chooses, cherry picks and chooses. If it's a good response that she's going to have, then she's all for getting coverage. But if it's a challenging, hard question, she gets a little perturbed or stays silent. But yet, the irony here is Julian Holt is in a crowd of persons, the public defender, that are saying, if you see something, say something. Tell us. Yet I'm asking her a question, a very legitimate question, and she's crickets. She is part of a group that are on the same page about urging the public to be responsive, to stop gun violence, and to give tips. But she's silent. She doesn't talk. Are we asserting the Fifth Amendment? Be responsive, Mrs. Holt. You're the public defender. Yes, conflicts. As we saw, Mary O'Connor said you can give it anonymously. Is an anonymous tip coming into the office of the public defender? And then the public defender is going to anonymously relay that? And what if that leads to an arrest and that person is appointed to her office? Is her office going to represent someone that a tip from her office was relayed to the Tampa Police Department? What if that tip includes information from somebody that office is currently representing? Gretchen, let me pose this question to you, Gretchen. You were a public defender. You worked in that office, and you worked in the Sixth Circuit, which I worked for both of those offices. Let me pose a hypothetical to you. If you were the public defender, again, let me be fair here. As a citizen, I'm a defense attorney, and a very zealous one, as hopefully the public is going to be able to see. Julian Holt has done good things. I've collaborated at times, I believe, to a certain extent in discussions to better the system. So, and I could point out to good things that Holt has done during her tenure, over 30 years. I hear she's retiring. I hear she's announced that she's retiring. That seat is open for 2024. So if anyone's interested in running for that office, she has announced that she's retiring. But this is a legit issue. And I just want to know, Gretchen, if you were the public defender, let's just say hypothetically, and you're there. I mean, I can understand somebody calling me saying, hey, do you want to be part of this press conference to reduce gun violence? Absolutely, I want to be. I'm okay with that. I want gun violence reduced. I want there to be safe in the community that I live. I don't want people to be needlessly murdered. I don't want the devastation that comes about. I know friends who have experienced murders of their loved ones. But if I'm there and all of a sudden that thing comes up, I'd be like, whoa, I don't even know if it's protocol. But at some point, I'd like to clarify, excuse me, excuse me, I'm the public defender, and for a multitude of reasons, I'd rather that my office not be a conduit of crime tips that then I would pass on to the Tampa Police Department. Am I right? Wrong? Gretchen?
Yes. And yes, I questioned whether she knew that that was going to be said. And she did put her head down in the clip. So I think I probably would have been like, oh, no, 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 and backed away. As a criminal defense attorney, and if I was public defender, because the optics aren't good when you're put in that situation. But it doesn't look like she knew that that was going to be said. Yeah,
Well, but Gretchen, I understand that, and I would
Yes.
agree with you. I would agree with you. Thereafter, you're the public defender, and you're
Right.
asked in an inquiry.
I would be issuing a statement. So I don't know if she's preparing a statement or anything, hopefully, but I would probably issue a statement just for clarification. We do not accept crime tips. We're defense attorneys. I'll accept a crime tip if it's going to exonerate my client.
Right,
That's
but
not
and even still, you would have to do a conflict analysis to see if the tip that's coming in might implicate another person that you have a loyalty to defend, that you're currently defending. Yes,
Definitely. And to me, the optics are weird that it was mostly city of Tampa politicians and community church leaders, faith-based leaders. Why did they have the public defender and the state attorney both there?
I don't think that it's a problem with the state attorney. Do you believe? Even Connie, me and you talked about that this week. You said I don't have a problem with the state attorney there.
Yeah, no, but they're not city officials. They're statewide officials.
Do you have a comment or reaction to that, Connie?
I have a problem with the whole setup because we've been dealing with this issue not just in the gun and gun violence. It's a national problem. But the way it is being dealt with all the time in the African community is not getting to the root source, the root of the problem. We piecemeal this thing, we put band-aids on it.
Oh boy. Okay, Michelle, and good evening. Thanks for joining. Let me call Connie. She got cut off. You have any reaction to this?
Well, I'm with attorney Gretchen at this point, playing the devil's advocate. I don't think that Holt knew what the lineup of questioning was going to be. You know what I'm saying? And I did get an opportunity to go back and watch the clip myself, and I see where attorney Gretchen said that she, kind of just like bowed her head a little bit. But again, an email was sent out to her, and she's, her failure to respond, to such a pressing community concern, because I found myself, on the other end of the law, and and was represented at a point, by the public defender's office, and I don't think that I would have wanted to, at a point to say, well, wait, y'all the snitches now? I don't think that I would have,
Well, so let's stay on that. Let's stay on that. You were represented at one point. And let's say that while the case was open and pending, you go ahead, turn on the TV, see that presser, the chief with the public defender nearby, and her saying, "Hey, tell us." And then Representative Har saying, "We're all happy to receive any type of tip." How would you lose trust, confidence?
Well, I absolutely have no trust in the entire system anyway. So, and this right here is just, I don't know, maybe she doesn't care. I'm not speaking for her. I don't know her mindset. I don't know her mentality. I don't know what her mind frame would be at this point in time, in this moment. She just announced, she's announced that she's returned. So, when people retire, they don't care what comes at them. They don't care what flies out of their mouth, and they don't care what's going on, because they're doing just that. She's set, what I'm saying? She has a good cushion, whether or not she has any other political aspirations. You know what I'm saying? We just don't know what her mind frame is right now, that, why she hasn't responded back to the email that, in question, hey, wait a minute, will your office, allow tips to come in through an anonymous line. I think it's very disingenuous. You know what I'm saying? If she even thought about doing something of the sort, and we would have to question, I would have to question her whole entire tenure as being the public defender for the 13th Circuit and the defendants that she's represented. And we all know that the vast majority of the defendants that are represented by the public defender's office, they're indigent clients. And it just means you can't afford a regular private attorney. So, and I'm just trying to figure out what type of secret deal did you know about, if this hypothetically would happen, what type
So
secret
yeah,
deal?
so I'm not gonna make any assumptions. I'm asking a question that she can answer and clarify whether she is or she's not, because again, I did in yesterday's email, I don't know that taking tips or accepting tips is in and of itself bad. It's just going to create a problem.
But
It's going
Haiti,
to
I cannot imagine, Haiti, that she would accept tips. I mean, I worked at her office later than you. I think I left in like 2017 or 18, but it was a hardcore office. We would get fired. We would get fired if we let somebody plea out at arraignment before we went and sat down at their case. So it was a hardcore office. So I can't imagine that she would accept tips. And hopefully she's writing up a press statement or something
I hope
about.
so, because you know what? Just so Connie's asking me for the link. Hopefully she'll come on, but we have a couple of more things to talk about, and hopefully she'll in the next couple of minutes she'll jump on. I hope that Julian Holt does do that and give a statement to say, look, I'm down with the whole no gun violence. Let's keep our community safe. I can collaboratively and cooperate insofar as not creating unnecessary conflicts for my office. So I don't think the ideal thing is to have people invited to call crime tips into my office, because that's going to create, if she does agree to do that, it's an optically problematic thing. But if she does, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But you're going to have to create a mechanism internally to document tips given and if you're relaying them and how exactly that looks like. I want to know how that looks like. If they decide, yes, we're not going to make any color, we're going to do that. We're going to help to get tips and generate them and pass them on to TPD. I want to know how that looks like. I think it's a problem for the general public, even those who are going to need the services of that office. I think that in of itself, optically, I would maybe ask for conflict-free counsel, because I'm going to have a doubt that I'm going to receive conflict-free representation if this office has signed up to receive tips and collaborate with law enforcement. It's an adversarial system. It's adversarial as it should be. So
Haiti, if I even suspected that the nature of my counsel was compromised, I would sooner represent myself than rely on the public defender's office. I'm sorry, like that's just not right. That's not right at all.
okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna call Patty Silliman. I want her on. I want her to, because as we heard, Chief Mary O'Connor is saying call these things in anonymously. I wanted Gretchen on too to talk about this anonymous. You're calling an anonymous tip. You're not saying your name, who you are. You could be motivated by being vindictive towards a person and making something up. Are they going to pay these people money who call in? Are there anything that's given to them in return for their, because Crime Stoppers does give money at times. There are money rewards. So anonymous tips, like right off the bat, in and of itself, they're not they could lead to something helpful. But explain that whole process legally, Gretchen, how that works.
Of course, as a defense attorney, I don't find anonymous tips credible at all. Typically, when police get anonymous tips, the way the way that case law has been set out, what should happen in cases when the police get an anonymous tip is that it has to be I can't speak.
Corroborated.
Yes, thank you. Yes, by other evidence as well. It can't just be an anonymous tip. So it'll be interesting how this plays out. But I think the big thing is that it's more. I felt like Mary O'Connor was doing a advertisement for Crime Stoppers. Call Crime Stoppers, turn in your friends, and we'll pay you. You know, something like that.
Okay, and so what happens so if they're anonymous, so essentially she's saying we're going to keep you anonymous so that you're not, so that then we don't have to deal with a second murder in our city, right? Because that's a consideration. If somebody is going to snitch on someone, they're subjecting themselves to danger. And we will soon, in a couple of minutes here, bring on Patty Silliman, and we'll hear about the story of her son who TPD killed.
Yes. That's you're not supposed to base a case on just a tip.
You know what the feedback that I got from some community members as I've been pondering and talking about this with various persons? This is one thing that they have that Chief Mary O'Connor might know. Why is it that you want, because this is happening in East Tampa, and I'm going to let Connie and Michelle talk about this, comment, react to this. Why is it that you want us to snitch on others, but you as police officers don't snitch on yourselves? That's one. And another thing, she's asking for the help from the community. Chief Mary O'Connor, who was part of 2 programs, one currently under investigation, that resulted in having persons in the very community. Now she's asking, community, we need your help. We need your help. The very community that was targeted, and some innocently lost their housing, and disproportionate bike citations that led to arrest and records, and then that leads to you can't get adequate housing or housing at all, or a job. It just devastates you. With those 2 programs, she was involved. Now she's seeking the help of the community that was targeted. What do you say, Connie? What do you say? She needs their help. What do you say?
Well, I would almost bet all the money I have she won't be getting it. Because, see, we have heard all this rhetorical rhetoric before that if we point out individuals, somehow our community is going to be better off. As a result of every program that they have ran in our community, whether it was one striking you out, or if it was weed and seed, or if it was gun by bike, we still have generation of young people either still going to prison or dead. And so I have very little confidence that any of them is interested in solving the problem. Prison is a big money bag for the most of them. From the judges on down, people know where to put their retirement. They know what pensions to join. They know what stocks to buy, and it's going to be beneficial at the end for them, down to the what canteens that's going to be stored in prisons. On the other hand, if you look at some of those people that was at the press conference, most of them was grant recipients, or they want to be a grant recipient. So if she was sincere, or any of those politicians up there was sincere about solving the problems, we would get to the root of the issue. And nobody want to talk about poverty and what poverty how it manifests itself in violent acts. I would tell you, and Haiti and Gretchen, you probably see this more. Most young African-American defendants, black, man or woman, usually don't have a permanent address. They're using their grandmama or mama's address as a mailing address. They don't have permanent housing because you know what? Based on something they did when they was 14 or 18 and now they're 25, they have nowhere to live. So the streets become their home. If we look at employment, it is the streets. And in our community, it is working, surviving, or hustling. And if any of them was interested in solving and saving Black lives, we would have formed some type of commission where nobody is getting paid. And we would say that the city that has a $1 billion budget will be able to bring some hope to a hopeless community. Until then, all this ain't nothing but grandstanding and picture taking. They don't have anything to bring to the table that's going to bring any relief. I could point out half of those people that's up there from the community. Unfortunately for them, they lost a loved one, but if truth be told, they could tell you because young people was in the streets. And that's what we have in our community. We're lacking so many things that can give young people hope in our community. Just like you already announced, Saturday at 10 Conversation, we're going to be talking about how children in school is disproportionately suspended. And so when they're suspended from school, where do you think they end up? They end up in the street. Who become their teachers? The streets do. So until people get serious about this issue, it breaks my heart to just see constantly young people that is dying disproportionately at a young age, don't know nothing about living, don't even really know anything about joy and happiness. Because so many things have been pulled from underneath their feet that they have had to grow up at a very young, early age on adult issues to try to become the provider of the household. And much of the money that's circulating in our community becomes government dope money. Everybody know it, but don't nobody want to talk about it.
Well, and then some of those tips might lead to more minority Black children becoming part of the, like as they say, the school to prison pipeline.
Well, we got too many people in prison now. And the end result of so many Black men that's their uncles and brothers and their fathers is incarcerated. And so they're taking their messaging for other young people their age, and they don't know how to deal with real life situations. They don't know how to walk away. But their daddies are in prison, in jail because of lack of a good defense attorney, sometimes a corrupt police, and that's centered around a racist society that don't see no value in Black people unless they incarcerated.
All right, so listen, most of these, from what she's saying, you can stay anonymous. I have a problem with anonymous. Everyone should. They're anonymous. Someone, like I said, could be motivated.
Hello?
Okay, let me see.
Hi.
Hold on a second. Whoa, what happened here?
I'm here.
Could you all hear Patty? Okay, we can hear you, Patty. We can hear you. So thank you for joining. And I just wanted to comment on have you come and react, because this week I know you were up north and handling some personal matters, but there was a press conference this week. The chief of police of the Tampa Police Department came out and has did a press conference based on some gun violence that happened over the weekend and that they've been having a problem with. And at one point they invited the public to call in tips of persons illegally possessing firearms, and at one point said that those tips can remain anonymous. So I wanted to kind of cover your son, Jason Westcott, in 2014 thereabouts. He was the unfortunate victim of the mishandling. That's what the lawsuit was based on, that was filed against TPD, of a confidential informant. Once that the Tampa Bay Times did publish, once the lawsuit was filed, and in it had, the headline was Tampa man's family sues police over fatal pot raid. I believe my recollection of the story was like $2 worth of marijuana, which now there's dispensaries that are able to distribute without any problem with the law, but $2 worth of pot. And That article read, the lawsuit filed late last week in Hillsborough County Circuit Court accuses the police of negligence for acting on the word of a confidential informant with a history of heavy drug use and criminal activity. Not too long thereafter, or before that, actually, that lawsuit, this individual, apparently because of conscience pangs, did something that most confidential informants don't do: come out and say, look, I did something that resulted in the death of somebody, and then I wasn't entirely honest, if at all. Times exclusive confidential informer blows whistle in fatal Tampa SWAT raid. In it, that article said a 50-year-old felon and drug addict, Kugel, was the principal Tampa Police Department informer against at least 5 suspects this year. He conducted 9 undercover operations. In their probable cause affidavits, his handlers called him reliable. Even Tampa's police chief praised his track record. That was Jane Castor, who just appointed Mary O'Connor, who's asking the public to call in anonymous tips. Hide. We don't have to know who you are, and just go ahead and start making accusations against people. And then what does it say? Kugel said they were all wrong. He said he repeatedly lied about suspects, stole drugs he bought on the public's dime, and conspired to falsify drug deals. This is the same agency that just came out and said, we want you anonymously to call in tips so that we can go and investigate who you call in. What do you have to say about that, Patty?
Well, first of all, Tampa Police Department was at the time when they were using Kugel, they said that he was a vetted confidential informant, which he was redlined and should never have been used. First of all. Second of all, he was reliable until he wasn't reliable anymore when he turned on Tampa Police Department and said that he was lying. So he was reliable to them until he turned on them, and then he wasn't reliable.
And that's true,
So-
because you know what? I followed the story during that time, Patty. You know that I've been a supporter, and I've
Right.
done that all I can to bring attention to
Get
this, because it
things
was
out.
a very
Yes.
Sad case. Your
Right.
young son.
And Kugel did come forward, and he did admit, that he did lie about several different things, in regards to, stating that he had bought more pot than they said, but he also said that Tampa police fabricated a buy when he went to get, pot from Jason. He didn't have any. And when he went outside and told them that, they said, well, we spent too much time and money on this. So they took out marijuana, hydroponic marijuana, out of evidence and had him sign it and state that he got it from Jason. And he stated that he did that. So, I mean, at the time, when all of
give
this
me your
was going on-
reaction to the Tampa Police Department now calling upon the public to give anonymous tips. What is your reaction to that? Based on
I think it's insane, because all they're gonna be, you're just asking for trouble. They're gonna come to your house. They're gonna they're so crazy. You could be putting yourself and other people in danger just from the simple fact of calling them and giving them tips. You could be putting somebody else in danger. Somebody could call in and say whatever they want. And if that's going to lead them to run over there and check it out. I mean, they went to my son's house based on a lying confidential informant and found $2 worth of marijuana. And my to call you and make accusations of people that you're not even going to verify and send out people to their houses, you're going to have a city of dead people.
I don't know if they're going to verify it or not, but I do know that based on your son's case, my confidence level in Tampa Police Department is not incredibly high. First, they said he was reliable, and then when he came out and said that it was inaccurate with the information that he gave to be able to have information included in their probable cause affidavit, then all of a sudden Jane Castor's like, oh, he's a liar. First he's okay until he's not, and then he's a liar. So And just as of
Right.
recent, we had Justin Garcia on with a recent policy decision from Chief O'Connor saying that they're giving them the ability in certain instances to turn off their body cam, which is the best
Right. And
evidence.
that's absolutely crazy.
Mhm.
I mean, the whole point of a body camera is, it's supposed to protect not just the person who you're arresting, but the police officer. So why would you even need to shut off your body camera? The simple fact that you even are suggesting that you need to shut off your body camera is right there telling you that we do stuff that we don't want you to see.
Okay,
You know,
thank
I
you, Patty,
mean,
for calling in. We'll have you on another time so that we can focus more, like have more time to cover more of your son's story. Okay.
okay. And I just want to say one more thing real quick.
Yep.
The whole fact about of confidential informants with that whole thing, they have been struggling with confidential informants for a very long time. So anyone who calls Tampa Police Department with any kind of tips, they're putting their lives and other lives in danger. That's all I'm going to say about
Have a
that.
good
That's
evening,
crazy.
Patty. Thank you for calling and thank you.
Bye.
Connie, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to wrap up. Getulio, I'll give you, and Michelle, you haven't spoken a lot. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. Connie, followed by Connie, and then Getulio, and then I'm going to sign off and bid everyone a good evening. Any last words, Michelle?
Well, again, I think it's disingenuous that that our public defender of many years has not come forward to make a statement, to sever.
She may soon.
Well, maybe she will after this video gets out, and it's surfacing around the internet. She may grow a conscience to do so forth, and that is her own. And so I'm just not sure, where this is on, but I'm gonna, to me, again, it's disingenuous of her act to not say anything, thus far regarding this, regarding anything, and I'm just hoping that she grows a conscience and says
You're having a little bit of trouble there, Michelle. Listen, I love you very much. I know that it's disappointing that there's not an immediate response, but I like to hold off judgment in the event that there's some intervening circumstances that does not allow somebody that is intending on saying something but hasn't had the time to. Now, if we don't get ever at some point, I may change my thought process as to what exactly I want to term the silence and the decision not to respond, to make clear whether she is or not receiving crime tips. But anyways, I hear what you're saying. It's a disappointing, but she is business, and I just did sent the email yesterday. Sometimes you got to give people. I know that I'm busy every day, and sometimes I'm not able to quickly respond. So we will follow up on this. We're gonna have a follow up in a week or so, and I'll let the community know whether I've received. If she does decide she wants to be write a statement to bring clarity to this, then I'm happy to immediately supplement this broadcast and follow up and let the community know that, and publish whatever statement she may issue. Connie.
Whether she do or don't, for me, is not important. The community has limited confidence, and that's standard almost down to a 0.0 of our elected officials. We've just seen how people look the way when there's not any political gain for individuals to have. And so, I would hope that ordinary people would put pressure on the establishment that if we want to solve this problems of gun violence here on the local level, then we got to stop playing with it and put some real resources in these neighborhoods to provide some type of comfort so we can deal with the ongoing trauma that give rise to this type of violence.
Okay. Getulio.
So underserved, marginalized, frontline communities, whatever you want to call it, as Miss Connie said, the level of trust and confidence in our democratic, in our judicial, in our legal, in all of our institutions has historically been low. You, you know, they call it a marginalized community for a reason. So when you have like just speaking from the sake of optics, when you have the elected public defender standing next to officials who say, "Listen, if you know something, say something," that is that does not serve to strengthen um, these institutions. And speaking from not even from the point of view of a marginalized community, because given the bipolarization that's going on in the country, our institutions as a whole are at its lowest level of trust, historically speaking. So you add that on top of marginalized communities, you know, and how they've been treated. It's a joke. We have to demand better of our elected officials.
Okay,
You know,
so yep. Sorry up there for interrupting you.
that's fine.
Celeste Mona Judge Johnson, thanks for tuning in. Mona, she says, "What happened? It happens if someone informs to keep themselves out of trouble. Yeah, that could happen. That's part of the CI system, confidential. I'll turn on somebody if I get a more lenient sentence or a better outcome on my case. That could happen very well, and they can be incentivized to get somebody in trouble for that very reason. Okay, so Connie, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I hear that there's some good things on the horizon for you in terms of regularity coming on and addressing the community on important issues as you always have done for many years. And Getulio, always a pleasure to have you collaborating with me as well. Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge. This Saturday, we're coming on at 10 a.m. We're going to have Getulio. I'm going to also bring Tammy Schamberger, former school board district member in Hillsborough. And we're going to be talking about the issue of on the aftermath of Uvalde and the children murdered in the school and teachers. And also I kind of tied together that case with the current situation and the public outcry because some law enforcement didn't rush in at the time that the active shooter was still in the building. Then it was like a 40-minute to an hour gap. And so I recalled Broward County, and they had similar issues. And so there's interesting issues that we're going to be talking about Saturday, because in 2018, right after that agency who was led, the Broward County Sheriff's Office, Israel Scott, he was removed from Florida Governor DeSantis. And after they were sued, a federal judge dismissed the lawsuit as to most of them, except one of the resource officer who's going to trial this September on a very novel prosecution. But the rest of them, the lawsuit was dismissed because the federal judge found that law enforcement constitutionally does not have a duty to protect civilians unless that they are in their custody. So very good broadcast on Saturday, 10 a.m. live. You'll be able to call in if you want, or comment, interact with us in our virtual town square, Florida You Judge. Haiti Oropesa bidding everyone a good evening. Thanks for joining me, you both.